What's up, everybody, and welcome to Eagles on the Air, Salesian High School's podcast, brought to you straight from our broadcast studio. I'm your host, Steve Celestio, and I know I start every episode with talking about how great the guest we have on today is, but tonight I am super excited about who we brought in. We've given you the perspective from a Board of Trustee member, a teacher, an administrator, alums. But here we have the point of view of the parent of an alumni who's also the parent of a prospective student. And I'd like to introduce, I'm pumped to introduce our guest today, Mr. Vic Acevedo. Vic, I am so happy that you're here today and agreed to do this with us.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy to be here. I love the Salesian community, and when you reached out to do this, I was very excited to be included amongst that company that you mentioned. I've been keeping track of all the podcasts, and very, very happy to be here. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. You know, every week or so, we sit down with the crew from Why Not You Media. We think of like, who's going to be our next guest? Like, who are we going to interview and what point of view can we get? I said, say no more. I got a great guy. Let me reach out to my guy, Vic, see if he's interested in doing it. And so we're going to bring a great episode to you. I have no doubt about that. But I've started all of my guests off with the simple question, what is your Salesian story? Just to get a little bit of background on all my guests, so that the people at home can understand a little bit more of the life of Salesian, how people got here, what do they do when they get here. And we haven't had anybody with your perspective so far, being the parent of a young alum and with an 8th grade son. And so let's hear it. Vic, what is your Salesian story?
My son started here in 2020, and he just graduated in 2024. So he's a recent college freshman, and he's doing very well. My story about how, as a parent and my son decided to choose Salesian. He graduated in the pandemic year, so we managed to get the high school visits done before lockdowns, which was very fortunate for us. We went through all the schools, and it was very, very important to me as a parent and to my wife as well to make sure that this wasn't our decision for Silas in terms of where he wanted to go to high school. This was Silas's decision, and we were going to support him. In terms of why he chose the school, I mean, look around, right? 17-acre campus. How many high schools have the beautiful facilities that Salesian has? Not to mention, every year you come back, and it's almost like a joke, right? You come back and what's changed? And there's literally something changing every year, from the actual studios that we're in right now. There have been upgrades all over. The lobby downstairs. There's a room across the hall, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of a library work area. So some very, very cool things. And every time you look up, there's something new being done. And that's part of what attracted Silas. And I think that's why he did so well here, because the focus was where he wanted to go, not where we wanted him to go. And that was very important.
Yeah, it lends itself to something very simple at the heart of what we do. We want the students to be happy. And if it's the parent dragging them somewhere, or if it's the parent pushing them somewhere, and they're in a spot that they don't want to be, they're not going to be happy, and they're not going to want to succeed academically. And so I commend you for giving your son the ability to make that decision and just guide him along the way.
Well, I will say it was with guardrails, right? You couldn't go anywhere. There are some factors that my wife and I, and if you don't mind, I'll kind of expound upon what my wife and I were looking for and how we kind of guided him through the process. You know, there's everybody talks about the 5 C's of buying a diamond, and most of the men here at Salesian at some point will have to go through that. But right now, it was about the 5 C's were around. The first one is a Christ or Catholic-centered education. Very, very important to us in our home, and obviously Salesian provides that. The next one is, everybody talks about the fact that it takes a village. It does, right? How many times Silas said, and it brought a smile to my face every single time. Dad, they said this, my teacher or one of the administrators or someone in the school said the same thing that you said. And I would always look at him and smile and say, money well spent, right? So, obviously it's not just you educating our son, it's us together educating our son. The next thing is community or community service. That's another very, very important aspect. It's one thing to succeed in life, and obviously we want that for our sons and our daughter as well. It's another thing to, as Jesus said in the Bible, right? Whatever you do for the least of my people, right? So it's not just enough that you are successful. You need to reach back and pull someone along with you in terms of that success. And that's very important. Again, we talked about, the Catholic Christian, but, providing that community service and helping others that need it. The next one is very, very important, and I know it props up a lot of parents' ears. It's college prep, and Salesian most certainly is a college prep. And I know you have, I pay attention, and I go to all the functions, but there are 3 tracks, or one for students that require a little extra help, one for students who a regular college prep, and then there's one that's a little bit more advanced. And Silas, fortunately, was in that more advanced one. He was able to attain some college credits, which we're very pleased about because, as everybody knows, college is very expensive. So college prep, very important. I see, I've been tracking his progress through this first semester, and it's very, very important to me that he's not behind, right? It's not like, oh, wait a minute, they asked to write a big paper and I'm not prepared. So that college prep is very, very important, and he's hit college in stride through these first few months, so very, very pleased. And the last one is cost. Everybody knows that inflation is a real thing, and it's affecting every working class person in this country. Cost is very important, and to act like it's not important is problematic. We all know that it is. Many Catholic schools are closing, and fortunately that's not a problem that Salesian has, but the point is that less people can afford to send their kids to a Catholic education. So the other side of the cost is the value, right? You want the best education you can possibly afford. Value is a real thing, right? But if you can get the same education and have the same level of success, that to me is a major, major win.
As a parent, and if everyone's been watching and listening at home, I have 2 young sons myself. That value, the word value, is so important in everything we do. If we don't feel like we're getting our, lack of a better term, a good bang for our buck, we're not going to do it as parents. And so that value, I love the fact that Silas was able to come over here, knock it out of the ballpark student. Okay, he was fantastic. He was reliable. He was mature. He was everything
He's
we
going
could
to love
ask for.
watching this.
Oh, yeah. Hope he doesn't get a big head watching this. Silas knows he was loved when he was here. He was accepted from day one. He treated himself and his classmates with respect and received that in return tenfold. It helped him get to where he is right now at the college level. So tell me, where is he at the college? I know you said he earned some college credits here. Where did he end up in college?
He decided to follow his sister to Pace University. And it's funny because he's starting Pace, and his sister just graduated Pace. She's now doing her master's, but she's in the city. So technically, even though he followed his sister, he's up at Pleasantville. He has his own unique experience. The other thing is that she majored in computer science. He's majoring in cyber law. So they both decided to go like a technical route, but his is a little bit different. And he's charting his own course. In fact, just the other day, and this is very important to me, we talked about fit, right? I asked him, how do you like it? And, okay, I know you're doing great, and we're happy about that, but do you like it? And he looked at me and he smiled. He said, I made a good choice. And again, part of that is the feeling of he's making a choice. And again, we put some guardrails as parents, right? You can't just, pick up and move to another country, or maybe you could if you get the right scholarship. But, we put some guardrails, and he managed to pick the best college for him. And we couldn't be more excited about that. And if I may add, we were just talking about value and cost. It is very, very important to get college scholarship these days. If most high schools are unaffordable, most colleges are extremely unaffordable. And so scholarship is very, very important. We're very pleased that Pace gives lots of merit-based scholarship. He received a 90% college scholarship, right? So at the end, his college now costs half of what his Salesian education costs. I mean, talk about value and bang for your buck. I couldn't be more excited to be here. When you asked me to do this, I'm like, of course, because I absolutely love Salesian and what they've done for my family, and we'll see if the same holds true for Victor. But, very, very thankful.
I have a feeling it will, and I hope to God
Me
Victor chooses Salesian as well. He knows that I went to go visit his classroom at St. Barnabas not too long ago.
Yep.
And I didn't want to embarrass him by kept on pointing at him and like saying, but you may remember from Silas, or your dad was just at school. So you had a few kids that went through St. Barnabas. And I know that you volunteer a lot around Salesian High School. So much of what we do centers around being a part of your child's education. Some parents even fear at the 8th grade level, they fear that they're going to send their kid to high school and it's going to be like they're sending them away somewhere. That, oh, I was so a part of his education when he was in the 8th grade. I'm worried that's not going to be the case anymore. But I think you could speak on the fact that you probably volunteer here as much as you do at St. Barnabas.
For sure. So over the last 2 years, my wife and I were co-presidents of the Homeschool Association at St. Barnabas, right? Everybody talks about it takes a village. Well, you need to create that environment. And it's not enough to just say, oh, we need to help out. Somebody said, hey, do you mind taking this leadership role? And my wife and I said, absolutely. Here, we didn't necessarily have a leadership role in terms of like an official title, homeschool association, but whenever we were needed, we were here, right? And we didn't want to step on Silas's toes, but at the same time, if we're needed to be a part of the community, we were here. We were always ready to serve. And I think it's funny because I don't know if Silas has necessarily, or maybe even Victor as well, has directly realized it, but it's kind of subconscious, right? They see you helping out. They know that at some point they need to give back, whether that be financially, of their time, to the community, whatever it is. It becomes second nature to them. And I know that Salesian kind of did that, right? Like Silas went on his service trip and he came back changed. He was talking about wanting to help other people and wanting to volunteer in the community. And we're currently doing that through our church, right? But the point is that they built that seed of it's not just enough that you're a good student. You have to change the lives of others and help other people. And to see him come back, my wife and I were talking about it. It kind of makes me a little emotional when we talked about it. But he left a young man, and neither one of us wanted him to go away. And It's a week away from home, and are we prepared for that? And is he prepared for that? He did amazingly. Comically, they asked them to put their phones away. So we now know that he can live a week without his phone if he needed to, which is amazing. And he lived, believe it or not, he lived. And he came back a changed person in terms of wanting to help others. And, again, I can't say thank you enough to the paving of the road for him to become a man. And again, yeah, sure, that's, everybody always says, you guys did a great job. It's me and my wife. And we love to hear that. But we also know it's not just us, right? It's the school, it's the faculty, it's the administration, it's the programs that he's a part of. It's him stepping out on a limb, right? He didn't even love to play sports. He came here and bowled as a sophomore, right? And he wasn't the best on the team, but he wasn't the worst. But the point was that he stepped out of his comfort zone to do things that you wouldn't normally do. He enjoyed writing, and I said, why don't you try to do something for the yearbook or the newspaper? Sure enough, he's responsible for the editor-in-chief for the school newspaper. If anybody knows Silas, they know that, sure, he's a good student, but he generally wouldn't do that on his own. But there was something about Salesian and the education and the staff here that forced him to come out of his comfort zone. And it warms my heart to see him not only take that opportunity, but then be selected by his peers to be the editor-in-chief of the paper. That's just like, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so many of the episodes of the podcast, we talk about the kids or the boys, getting out of their comfort zone and joining something that you grow to love that you had no idea that you had any interest in whatsoever, a la bowling or writing or something like that. A lot of it lends itself to Salesian High School, to the style, of Salesian High School, in which you don't mind that your coach may also be your math teacher, or your moderator might also be your English teacher. There's such a connection between the students and the teachers, students to teachers to parents, and that community is so alive. The best part about it is, in my opinion, it's just an extension of the schools they came from. And so you guys, again, coming from St. Barnabas, there's been more of a connection to St. Barnabas than a lot of people realize. And one of those connections goes to the mom of one of our administrators, the director of facilities, Steve Macias. His mom was a longtime 8th grade teacher at St. Barnabas. Now, I don't know if it's probably.
She was. In fact, she was Silas's 8th grade teacher.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we asked him, it's funny because, you know, when he graduated, I said, Silas, who was your favorite teacher? And he said, Mrs. Macias. He said, everybody always said that she was tough and that she was mean, but really she just wanted to push you. And the fact that he had that maturity to realize that, in fact, I just met Mr. Macias earlier today.
Oh, wow.
And I welcomed him back because obviously he's an alumni.
Yeah.
We hadn't had the chance to properly meet, but it was very nice to meet him. And I did let him know the impact that his mother had on my son. And that must be a great feeling for him as well to hear that, right? Because I know that I love when people say nice things about my mom. And, she's no longer with us, but her impact continues to be with us. And that's really what matters.
That's awesome. And I actually, I said earlier that I went to go speak to the 8th graders at St. Barnabas not too long ago. And I told Mr. Macias that, and he was like, oh, my mom's school. And then I came back, I told him where I was. He was like, I remember that room. I think that was on the 3rd floor, a little bit down the hallway. So it was like St. Barnabas was like coming home to him.
It is fantastic. It's a great community.
It is. It's a great community. It's a beautiful little place. It's actually where I did some community service back when I was in the 11th or 12th grade. So I was familiar with the school myself. And it's a great community, and it's a great connection. But let's be real, it's not around the corner from Salesian High School. So travel has always been a little bit difficult, but I think Salesian's done okay getting those kids over here or giving them the chance to get over here. And I know that Silas was on our private transportation route.
Correct.
So it was okay for you guys.
It was great. It worked out great for the 4 years that he took the bus. I want to say it was like 3.5 years because the first year was a little difficult.
Yeah.
In terms of the pandemic. But it was great. We had no problems with the bus. It always arrived on time in the morning, and in the evening, obviously, there could be a little bit of traffic, but it was very consistent within 5 or 10 minutes. So it allowed my wife and I to plan in terms of, soccer mom and soccer dad, picking up all the kids. And, my daughter didn't have her license at the time. It's a lot of running around that you need to do as a parent. It takes a village, and Salesian helped. That bus was fantastic. In fact, some of the older folks that I was mentioning earlier that said that they used to have to take public transportation way back in the days, and it used to take them away from the school to downtown Yonkers and then back. Thank God we didn't have to worry about that. And in fact, the the fact that there was private transportation was very important to us in terms of why we selected Salesian. It would have been very difficult to have to take public transportation, but fortunately that was not something we had to worry about.
Yeah, and I'm sure as a parent, listen, we'll pay money for a little bit of peace of mind.
For sure. And, I know you probably get a discount as a student for public transportation, but think about waking up a half an hour to 45 minutes earlier, not to mention the time on the bus, and unfortunately, things sometimes from a neighborhood perspective aren't as safe. So taking out a laptop and doing your work, might not be the easiest thing to do. Even listening to a podcast or having your headset in, sometimes you need to be aware of your surroundings if you're going through, a tougher neighborhood, and that's a reality, and that's okay. But it was not something that we had to worry about, thankfully, and that worked out very nice. The one thing that I'll mention with respect to the transportation, because it was important to us, was how does it work if he's involved in an activity? And on those days, we would just pick him up from school, right? The bus is not going to wait for you to be a part of those activities, but it worked out just fine. He would sometimes wait in the, if let's say he had to wait an hour after school and I was going to pick him up an hour and a half later, he would be downstairs with some of the students. He played checkers, he played chess, just different activities. He played dominoes with Mr. Badillo, which anybody who knows me knows I'm addicted to dominoes, and I've been playing dominoes since I was 7 years old. So when I heard Mr. Badillo was teaching the students, Silas came home one day and said, Dad, do you know what they're doing at school? They're teaching me dominoes. I tried so hard to get him to learn how to play dominoes, and he was never interested. Mr. Badillo showed him, and he was in love. And all of a sudden, he's like, Dad, can you show me? And I was like, of course I can. So, he got involved in other things. Silas likes sports, but he doesn't love them. One day I came and I watched him, and he was outside shooting hoops. And again, it's not so much that you're the best or that you don't necessarily need to be a LeBron James or Steph Curry, but the fact that you get involved, that you realize that it's important to be part of a team, it's important to be able to understand the basic rules of the game. Again, that stuff is so translatable into college in terms of working with others, into the workforce, working with others. Sometimes it's a ball hog. How do you deal with that? Sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's somebody who doesn't want the ball, but you realize you have to distribute those things, those lessons, that you get from sports translate into college, into work world. And it was so important for me to see that even if he didn't love it, he participated.
And now you have to hit the reset button in reality because Victor's in the 8th grade. And so, are you guys planning on visiting other open houses, or do you plan on doing something very similar with Victor that you did with Silas?
We are. And in fact, I mentioned it a little earlier. We wanted it to be Silas's decision. And just because Silas made an amazing decision doesn't mean that we're going to take that decision away from Victor. We want him to have the same feeling that just because your brother chose 4 years ago doesn't mean that you don't have a choice today. And so we're okay with that. Same thing, with the same guardrails, but he has a unique and different perspective to see the success that his brother has had. And again, we are going to go through the process. I'll talk about from a parent perspective, but he sees it as well, right? When he goes to the schools, it was funny. When my daughter was looking at colleges, he was about 8 years old. He was asking questions when my daughter was looking at colleges. He's asking those same questions now from high school, and he watched Silas ask them 4 years ago. So he's probably a little bit more advanced than your average 13-year-old because of his siblings. He understands the importance of value, and he sees the value that Salesian has. And so he keeps saying, I think I'm going to choose that. And I said, and we would be nothing more than excited if you did, but we don't want to feel like we're pushing you down a path. We want it to be your decision. But he went through Saturday Academy. I think this is his 2nd or 3rd year of Saturday Academy. So he knows the faculty, he knows the staff, he knows the administration. He sees what it's done for his brother. So I think we know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, I want him to feel like it's organic, like it's his decision, not something that we're pushing on him.
I tell all the 8th grade kids too, especially when they come here and they have a sibling that's either here or that recently especially if they recently graduated. And I said, I want you to come to Salesian. Trust me, nothing would make me happier.
Right.
But I want you to come here knowing that you decided to come here, not that you felt forced to come here or coerced by your parents or your older brother or whatever. So I think I am going to get those tax results. Thank God your last name starts with an A. It's going to be right up top.
Fingers
I'm
crossed.
going to be looking for Acevedo. I'm going to be looking for Victor's results. I'm going to hope that I'm sure he's going to do great. And listen, overall, I'm so happy you were able to come on today. I thought you gave us some awesome insight, definitely a different perspective.
I appreciate that.
And I want to tell you, too, to make your job easier and all the 8th grade parents out there, once Victor takes the tax exam, your job in applying to Salesian High School is done. He selects code number 120, clicks it or types it into the test. It's a digital exam, the tax test. Once he does that, he's applied to Salesian High School. Don't ask me for an online application. You don't need it. You handled all your business. So we are having a scholarship exam in December 7th. I hope and I expect to see Victor there. And I know that you're going to continue to be a supportive parent. I hope to God to have you here as a Salesian dad for another 4 years. But Vic, again, I just want to thank you for coming here and thanks, and hopefully everybody at home watching this got something insightful out of this. I certainly did.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope parents that watch this, received something from my words and from my experience. In summary, it's been amazing. And yes, by the way, that is very important. The process is very simple, and some of the schools have a process that's a little bit more convoluted. And I appreciate the fact that Salesian, as a parent that's helping him go through the process, I do appreciate that you've helped keep it simple, as opposed to overly complicated with paperwork and stuff. There's time for paperwork, but I feel like not yet. Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of schools out there that have probably way more information about me and my family than they need at the moment, especially if he chooses not to go to those schools. But it is what it is. So I am very thankful that Salesian has kept it simple.
It is my pleasure. This has been an awesome experience. Episode 8, Vic Acevedo, awesome guest here today. I hope everybody here enjoyed it. Until next time, this has been Eagles on the Air.